Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video presentation. My name is Amy Trabert. I'm a doctorate student at the University of Buffalo. And today I'm going to be presenting my Professional Collaboration Network, PCN poster, specifically around using professional collaboration networks for pre-implementation planning. And this was all done through the social work class 625 with Dr. Hitchcock. Overall, with this poster, I'm going to go over the things that I've learned throughout this semester, specifically on how I've met the course objectives, and then how I will be using and translating these skills into my future endeavors and in this program moving forward. So overall, like I mentioned, I have learned a lot through this class. I have learned new skills, gained new PCN members, and collaborated with many different individuals that I never thought I would. I'm going to briefly go over with you the learning objectives. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but briefly go through it and then really focus in on talking about how I met those objectives and how I've learned many new things over the course of the semester. The learning objectives that were described were based from our syllabus. And there was 5 learning objectives. These were demonstrating advanced digital literacies and associated skills necessary to build a professional social media presence, articulate how multidisciplinary PCNs can support knowledge development and translation of evidence-based interventions and their relevance in pre-implementation planning and development. Number 3, identify and apply digital methods and tools to be used in stakeholder identification and engagement when implementing evidence-based practices. Number 4, develop and implement appropriate strategies for active collaboration for PCNs. And lastly, number 5, identify and discuss evidence practice implementation gaps relevant to substantive topic areas such as trauma-informed human rights perspective and taking that into account. In meeting these course objectives, one of the main things that we learned in the beginning of the semester was about social listening. And social listening means taking the time to read and see what other people are interested in to find mutual collaborations and to start a conversation together. So I used social listening when I was connecting with the Niagara County director. I did not know a lot of different things about him, so I used social listening as identified below by looking at information that he had talked about in the Buffalo News on Twitter. And through that, I was able to engage him better in a stakeholder engagement meeting, which I didn't think would be possible. The stakeholder analysis assignment really allowed for me to identify the strengths and weaknesses of my group and of the stakeholders. So by identifying these strengths and by identifying these weaknesses, I was able to learn what truly was the best match for them in engaging them over social media and with sharing education tools along the way. I learned that my director was not very familiar with LinkedIn. And so kind of going into the course objective number 3, I was able to introduce her to LinkedIn, and we began collaborating and sharing information through LinkedIn and then engaging with stakeholders that were actually in a different county than us that were implementing holistic defense, which is the evidence-based practice that I would like to do my capstone project on. I learned more about professional knowledge management tools through this class. Google Drive is a huge component of now my life in talking with stakeholders and sharing scholarly articles and other information. I've been able to use Google Drive with all my stakeholders that are at my agency and outside my agency as well. It seems to be the easiest tool and seems to be the most realistic tool for all my stakeholders as they're really familiar with it. So I also was able to identify through social listening that many different stakeholders have different opinions on how an evidence-based practice should be implemented and have many different ways of communicating with each other over social media or using digital media platforms. And in regards to that, the assignments really helped me understand who my promoters are, who you know, the defenders are. And it really helped me understand who I needed to talk more with or who I maybe needed to bring to the table more. In addition to this, I really learned with social listening the importance of LinkedIn and knowing that you need to not only post things in LinkedIn, but also comment on things as well. So that's how I was able to engage stakeholders. As you can see in the picture, is there such a thing as job search burnout? I started communicating with this person and identifying with her some of these burnout things. And we ended up having a further conversation. And funny enough, she was very connected to the holistic defense community. And same again with LinkedIn, I was able to really get different stakeholders that I had never been engaged with before talking to me about resources available in the Buffalo community. So there's been some really great strides for me with not only my PCN, but organizing my data and identifying it. So there's many challenges and rewards to this whole process, especially getting obtaining the new skills. And I would say some of the challenges were definitely, it can be very time consuming and it can be really frustrating as well. I think we can all agree that when people don't use the same platforms, maybe when people aren't familiar with certain platforms, it makes it pretty difficult for you to come to a consensus on what tools should be used. And by listening to my group and my stakeholders, we found that Zoom, Google Drive, and then email was the best ways of communicating outside our stakeholder meetings. I think the rewards really were gaining new PCN members that I didn't think were possible. And I gained most of these new PCN members on LinkedIn. I was able to obtain diverse information, not just from people that are in the social work field, but are in the medical field, that are in the law field. And I've been able to connect with them about their different perspectives and approaches of how holistic defense can be beneficial for the client in all beings, not just in the social work aspect. And some other things that I really got to know more about was insight on stakeholders and their role and how they can collaborate with you outside of the realm, outside of these meetings, and introducing a lot of these tools, introducing a lot of the social media was a very new task for me. Although it was time consuming and could be frustrating since not everyone knew about it, it was worthwhile because they did engage with many different stakeholders that can help us with implementation strategies. My impact on learning, the class and these assignments really allowed me to be competent in these strategies that I wasn't familiar with when starting with this program. And now that I've gained more PCN members, I've gained different perspectives. I have a way of managing new information through my Google Drive. I know how to social listen properly on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm really able to apply these skills in my not only professional career, but my everyday life. And I plan on using this furthermore in my capstone project as well, because this is a really great way for me to continue the push, the movement that's happening towards holistic defense. And I could really see us staying in touch this way, especially with things, how things have been going with COVID. We need to make sure that we're staying and communicating together, and we're all doing that in a way that's feasible for others. So that is basically what I've learned so far over this semester. And I'm really looking forward to using and translating these skills into my capstone project. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I hope everyone has a good night.